in 10 minutes to hand it
I move we
out.
adjourn.
I'd like to call this meeting to order. It's 7 o'clock, the MAU monthly meeting. If we go back to the agenda, are there any public comments? Yes. Please identify yourself.
I'm Alan Baker from Shaftesbury. I'm on the middle school ad committee. Whoever moved the greenhouse site slightly to save the asparagus patch, thank you very much. That was very nice to see. I still feel it's, you wanted us to do long-term planning, and according to the engineer's report, the greenhouse is sited for short-term planning, for growing from September to May. If that plan ever changes, and they want to grow June, July, and August, it may not be in the right place according to the engineer's report, and I sent those concerns to all the board members here. And we got several thousand square feet of garden to replace. So you're going to give us the money to till up new ground, to replace the ground that's been lost? Mr. Johnson told me we could always move the greenhouse in the future. Hopefully you put that in the future budget if that comes up. You spent a lot of money on your consumer science room in here. It's basically a one design room. You can't really design for one thing. It's like 6 little kitchenettes in it. Fortunately, Mr. Green is taking over and utilizing it quite well for sustainable living class, but he wants to buy a refrigerator to help store the produce that kids are growing out on the ground. What happened to the 6 little refrigerators that were there, and the 2 big ones he said were by the door? They've all disappeared. And I can't believe they all broke at the same time. So I'd like them to come back before we spend more of our money buying another refrigerator, even though it is a grant money he's using. And as Mr. Pembroke has said many, many times, we're under budget problems. So where's the refrigerators? You can give us more money to fill up new ground, because the Act 250 permit says you have to do more than hay the field or plant an apple tree. And if you haven't read that, I can read you those parts right now, but I'm sure they're all available. And you said you have a long meeting, so I won't take up any more of your time. And I'd like to know what you mean by long-term planning. I gave you an example there in that email I sent to all these board members plus the CDC, and no one addressed those concerns for long-term planning.
I think we addressed, I'll answer that. I think we addressed those at our earlier meeting. What we're going to do under the direction of Tim Payne, the principal here, and others, we are going to do some long-term planning with particular emphasis on the continuation of the program. How we plan to be sure that it continues as it has for the last year or so. We also want to be sure that we are giving the students the best possible background we can, so that if they choose to go on and do this type of work as a life's occupation, that they'll be well prepared to do it. We also want to be sure that we budget properly for the many situations that come up that we haven't anticipated. And that is certainly going to be one of our major concerns as we go into the budgetary process. So your concerns are being addressed. I can't speak officially on the refrigerator, but I will ask Mr. Payne to get back to you on that and let you know what the situation is.
I think that program closed down before Mr. Payne was here.
Excuse me?
I think that you closed the consumer science program.
Well, I think he can probably figure it out. Anyway, I'm sure that he'll be in touch with you, and if he isn't, Mr. Cohen will be able to get somebody that will be in touch with you on that. Tim can do it.
And our ad committee for several years was trying to get wood ashes, to get a sample run. We were told repeatedly, there's nothing in them, it's not worth doing. Then we were told a test was done, and no test could be provided to us. So after one ag meeting, we went out and took some out of the dumpster. I took it to UVM. It has 16% more neutralizing value than the calcium carbonate that the ag committee allowed Mr. Green and Mrs. Fields to buy limestone to neutralize the soil out there, because the soil, pH is 5.5. So we've been throwing away an on-campus resource because no one would give us a sample. We had to go take it out of the dumpster ourselves. So we had to spend money we didn't have to spend. We could use the kids to do math to figure out how much of this would have to use as the equivalent of calcium carbonate lime. I'm just frustrated that we're stymied. No offense, Mr. Payne, he's been a breath of fresh air for us, so, but
We're working on the problems that you have expressed. I'm not sure about the ashes, what type of responsibility we have in terms of the kids and all that kind of business.
I
But
said I
though-
would take them home myself so they wouldn't go in your dumpster.
That's fine,
and
but I
save
think
money, but that
one-
didn't happen either.
One of the things we will do, we'll look into all those things that you have mentioned, and we will continue to work on having a program that is sustainable, and hopefully we'll be able to begin very shortly to produce more and more food for consumption here at the school. But thank you for coming in.
If anyone has questions, you know how to reach me.
Any other public comments? Tim?
Oh, no, I had it in an email.
Okay, very good. If there are no other public, yes, I'm sorry.
Can I make a
Sure.
comment in this section? I was a little concerned about something that I read in the banner just before dinner, actually, and I know not everybody gets a chance to see the banner, so I wanted to read it here. This is in an article about candidates debate that was held earlier this week, and it's just one sentence. The reporter says, "The cost of education is rising per pupil." You know that to be the case in Vermont. And Vermont is ranked very low for education nationally. I think we know that that is not the case. In fact, I think last month Laura Boudreau came and shared some statistics with us on how Vermont ranked across various subjects nationally and internationally too. And I'm concerned because there have been 2 or 3 articles, statements in the banner in the past couple of weeks which may be perpetuating some mistruths about how the state ranks in terms of its education. So I was going to suggest that we ask superintendent perhaps to offer to meet with the editor of the banner to discuss exactly how Vermont stacks up education-wise so that people reading the banner don't get the wrong impression.
Thank you. Very good. I'm sure, Jim, you made note of that, and we'll follow through. It's been something that has been brought to the attention of the board in the past, that the reputation that the state and different schools have is, as presented in the paper and other forms of media, is not often accurate. And it is our responsibility to be sure the public is well informed, and I'm sure that Jim will do that. We can move on then to the the presentation. Frank, are you going to chair that and move it ahead along? Okay. Would just introduce yourself in case anybody happens to be watching.
Director of Educational Technology for the SDSU. We're going to do a brief but I hope enlightening presentation on Chromebooks and how they're being used currently and how we can expand on that use moving forward here. Essentially, first off, a lot of people, when I say the word Chromebook, they get a little confused. They don't know what it is. Basically, it's a laptop that runs on the Chrome operating system, which is a system that runs in the cloud. So most of its functionality relies on applications you would get from the cloud. An application is what you might refer to as software sometimes, okay? One of the things that's great about Chromebooks was there are a number of things that I'm going to explain. And then Mr. Bell from the middle school is going to do a little lesson with you guys, a little day in the life of a Chromebook with you folks, so you can get hands-on experience with that. First, they're light, they're fast, they generally turn on in an average of about 8 seconds. Battery life is hours and hours. It's about 8 hours, but that for me, if I'm using my Chromebook to work, that's about 2 days worth of work. And they charge up really quickly too. My Chromebook charges usually goes from about 15%, which is what I run it down to a full charge in a little over an hour. So it has all the features that you would expect to see on a laptop. It has a keyboard, a trackpad, USB ports, so you can run an external mouse or other external devices. An HDMI port, so you can run it into a projector, like that one there is projecting up there. A headphone jack, an external flash card port, and a camera. The main features that are on board would be a Google Drive, which gives you Google Docs, which is a word processing program, Google Slides, which is a presentation program like PowerPoint, spreadsheets and forms that you can do surveys with, whatnot, Google Draw, and Gmail. Okay? Students in MAU have a Gmail account that's kept within our Google Apps for Education system. Furthermore, they're SBAC compatible. There have been rumors in the past that you can't do the SBAC tests or the MAP tests that we're required to do for compliance, and for AYP or whatever they changed that acronym to when we get away from No Child Left Behind. We've done one round of MAP testing throughout the SVSU, and I'm really happy to say that Dave Hansen here, by the way, one of our tech integration specialists, has been very beneficial in assisting getting these things rolled out, as has all my tech staff, Mike Sullivan, the whole gang. And they reported to me they did 1,800 MAP tests over 3 days and didn't have a single technical problem. There were problems with somebody maybe forgot their password or some other things happened, but technically 250 kids on the wireless network at a time taking the test, no problems. One of the things that we'd like to maybe play with is try to do the whole school at once. There would be over 600 kids at once, and see if we still can achieve that, and there's a good likelihood that we could. My personal experience, I took the SBAC practice test last week. English Language Arts, 7th grade. I think I did pretty good. You can't get a score on the practice test, but and I don't say this very often at all. I enjoyed it. I'm not a fan of standardized tests, number one, or any kind of test, but actually the experience was good. I wrote my little essays. Actually, it was paragraphs at 7th grade. I didn't have to do an essay, but the experience was really good. There are some things that kids are going to have to learn, though, but that's another discussion with the SBAC test, different ways to manipulate the test and maneuver around the test. But that's for another discussion. Right now, though, I'm going to give the floor to Mr. Bell, and he's going to walk you through some wonderful experience with Chromebooks. And we'll take questions after.
Thank you, Frank. Set the bar up. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, everyone. Good evening, Mount Anthony School Board. Good evening, Superintendent Culkeen, Mr. Pembroke, esteemed administrators, student members. Frank asked me to say some things about the Chromebook, and I am a big fan and user of the Chromebooks. I'm teaching 7th grade this year, and I thought maybe a good way to introduce and kind of give you an idea of how the Chromebooks are used in the classroom would be to give you a Chromebook. We're going to get you logged on and walk you through quickly a day here at the middle school as a 7th grader. So, if you would, and I put the board members' names here, so we have given you all passwords and usernames. So if you would click on New User and enter as your email address, that address that is on here, and you have to follow those pretty carefully. And then in the lower box right here where it says password, you also have a password to create a user.
Is it case sensitive?
Passwords are case.
Yes.
Passwords are absolutely.
Okay, so this is your email address and this is your
SVSU or APPS.
Mr. Sullivan, Mr. Hanson, backing you up. Anybody have questions over here? Okay, so when we get on, and I'll move a little bit ahead, but these guys will back you up and get you on. If you're on, you want to type in drive.google.com, and that will bring you to Google Doc, and you will notice if you click on Shared with Me, I have shared this document that we're looking at.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Where are you? Okay.
Scroll down and
The screens up there are different from what
Yep.
is showing up here.
Okay, welcome to your new account.
scroll down, hit your down arrow,
Learn more.
and then hit I accept at the bottom.
Okay. I see, where's it? Oh, we gotta scroll down there to say accept. There you go.
Sync your
Everybody see that? If you get the permission screen, scroll to the bottom and click I accept.
Thank you.
Oh, that'll be a second. You guys all have that? Yeah?
We get the picture.
Okay. Let me see. Are you logged in? Oh, good, okay. Yeah, so we don't need to choose a picture, but we do want to just say okay. And then we're gonna click on your Google icon here. There's a Google icon on the lower left. If you click on that and then click on the 9 little dots, you'll get to Drive right there. And click Shared with Me and you'll find it.
You all set?
Click on the
Go ahead and
Google.
launch Chrome there.
Google icon right down there.
Okay. But maybe it,
Oh, you got it, okay. So see these 9 little dots right there? Click on that box and you'll see the Google Drive system.
Drive.google.com.
You,
If you type that
let's
in
see,
one second.
click on the Google icon right there. Just with, using your, find your arrow and stick it on there. There you go. Okay, now hit, boom.
Yeah, and then hit
Good.
enter.
Okay, then.
And you'll
These 9 little
see-
dots, click on that.
Because
You
he
see
said
the
this
triangle.
in
Click on
advance.
the triangle.
This is your area for
that?
documents. Shared with me,
Drive.
share something else.
Okay,
Yep.
find the document, shared with me.
No, you click on the
Double
top
click
center.
on
Is
that,
that-
and then you'll
say
be-
what?
See those 6 objects on the right?
Yeah, on that.
Top
So,
center.
welcome to the day in the life of
Any one of those will get you.
Mount Anthony Middle School Chromebook. Who's not on right now? Everybody on? You need to get on? Okay.
I'm on.
One more.
I got through it once. I clicked accept and then go back here. I can't
Just a
see it.
second.
Yeah, go back.
All right, so we have to,
My house and asked if I
so we have to use
Sure, I
this
don't think
picture.
I did the woodwork, it's down south.
Okay, and click on shared with me,
Not that router
I
though.
guess not.
and then that's the document.
Watch out the terminology of these people.
Yeah.
Maybe if I can share with me, you'll get the same thing you got up there. Router is how you use it.
Oh, we gotta go to share with me now?
Oh, great, perfect, awesome.
He told me.
Open
Here
it
where
up,
it says
it'll bring
share
up
with me, and that's where the thing that he had shared with this account. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so most of us are there. We're gonna move through this quickly because I know you have a long meeting tonight. When our students arrive in the morning, they go to the cart just like that, and they grab their Chromebooks first thing. They're in advisory first block. One of the first things they do is check their calendar. Now, if you're looking at your screen and you have that document up, you have that, you can click on that and put up a calendar. This is our OASIS calendar, and it notes that there was math homework.
Clicking a day in the life
There was
of.
English homework, there was a picture retake today. Let's see, what else we have here? And I think there is, they noticed that there's a dance Friday night. There is an election tomorrow, they're electing student council reps tomorrow.
Where do we get from here?
And of course, there's a board meeting tonight.
So you can use 2 fingers to scroll down this document.
Okay, so
I'd rather just watch it
So
there.
this is his agenda, so you're
after they've checked their
experiencing
calendar,
what
This is really
one
time
of the things
consuming.
that we
If you
do every
wanna
morning
use the
is we have
slider on the
announcements. We have
side,
Project Wisdom, the Words of Wisdom.
grab a hold of
It's a
that
character
slider
development
again.
program.
And to zoom this out,
Well, I was just
Usually
using
have a
that.
quote.
that would work too.
An author today was
If you
Dwight
do
David
control
Eisenhower,
and then
because
plus sign,
yesterday was
it'll
his
zoom
birthday.
out so that it's maybe a
So
little
we had a
easier to
quote by
see.
him, and they talked about
How do we get to
some
the
of the
kid's
strengths
calendar?
of America that he made observations about. If you're curious about that Project Wisdom program, you can click on that link on any of these
Someone
Chromebooks, you
upstate
can get
that
more
on top.
information.
Is that what
But
that
I'm
is?
gonna go kind of scroll through very quickly,
team
but if you have curiosity, you can always go back and click on those links and
How do I get the ball scores?
find out more. Well, if you want to click on mine right here, there's the banner, if that's is that a good place to get ball scores? I'm not sure. We could have read that other article, but we'll see. All right. Some students will be checking the ball scores also. So,
It's life, they do that in business. so.
But that's my question really, can they get into the regular internet to search it for things?
absolutely, yes.
And how would they do that?
Well, this
Going
is,
down.
this is through the network, but
I think.
we have, actually, I'll let
Life of someplace to click on.
probably Frank speak to the limitations of the
Okay,
network.
I'll
It's pretty
find
open. You can go to any news, any
Yeah,
national news outlet. There are, I'm not sure what there are for filters now, but it seems pretty open.
I think the first one
Yeah,
there is
it's-
7.
Welcome
It's
to a
basically, you can go anywhere that we
That's
haven't
blue.
blocked, or, you know, that
7:30.
wouldn't,
That's where you
people
get the
wouldn't be,
calendar.
Okay.
you know, in a safe environment. I mean,
Remember that.
the internet's the internet,
I
you can
hope
get to
that's
it.
blue.
So, I don't know if you want anything more specific than that, Mr. Holbrook.
I don't know if you're on it, move it a little bit.
You can go to New York Times, or CNN, or Wikipedia, or, you know, whatever.
Okay, so, advisory typical, we have activities that may be centered around character development, or they may just be physical development. They may take some time in the morning to get outside and run around a little and get their blood pumping so that they are ready to learn. Block 1, I've just created social studies. In social studies 7th grade, they use a program called TCI. And TCI is a History Alive program, and I think our current units, empires of Mesopotamia, I think the Mayans, and exploring these empires. And so this is a program that has reading and note-taking and all kinds of things available with this. We can look into sound here, I guess. But if you want to know more about TCI, that's a standard part of the curriculum. Actually, it guides and it is much of the substance of the 7th grade social studies curriculum. I have made the second block, let's see, where do we go block 2? So, actually, I think they have moved right on to block 3. So one of the programs they use in block 3 is called
I'm stymied.
Go Math. And again, this is a quick survey. These are a couple of the resources, or a resource from each of the cores, but they all have a selection of them. There are several math programs that the math teachers use to support things like mastering basic math facts, as well as higher level learning.
What happens if you can't get into it, like I can't get into it?
Did you click on this link just like I did?
What are you trying to do?
He tells me it's not
I'm
working.
trying to
The
stay
sugar
with him.
Okay.
I'm not sure why you're not
Back on this
being able to
tab.
get into it right now, Mr. Holbrook, but,
We're operating from the same place here, so that would be a good question.
generally, though,
You put a link
students
in.
are logged into it, and
extra math.
it does, you know, generally, the class is logged into it.
Whenever you
It's a
click on
unique
one of
problem,
those
it's an
links,
anomaly that needs to be resolved right now, which I'm hoping Mike can resolve for you, but generally, that's not a problem in the classroom, right, Mr.
One of the
Holbrook?
things that's been very refreshing about
resources is on
Chromebooks this year, as opposed to netbooks that we've used in the past, or I piloted Chromebooks last year, is that we have had almost no connection problems. We've had really easy access, they're really quick, you can close them down and open them up, there's no loading time because we're operating in
How did it work with Apple?
in the ether, so you don't have to get anything out of the machine, so as soon as you can get to the website, you're there. So that was a math one. We have guided studies, you know, we do some independent
Physical
reading and guided
education
studies,
guy.
but we also use a program called Compass Learning. You may hear talk about MAP scores, and the Compass Learning Program
Commenting on
has
that.
MAP scores for each individual student who has their own logon, their own performance
Oh,
is
so you gotta do
connected
both of them, okay.
to the MAP scores, and the lessons that they engage are basically designed to improve their performance. So Compass Learning is a resource that we use in many of the guided studies, as well as other interventions to help students that need assistance. And you think about certain things, like you think about gym, and ordinarily we wouldn't consider that might not be a spot where typically we would be using a Chromebook, but we have the Mind and Movements program, and I know that the phys ed instructors use this periodically and engage kids, and also make this available as a resource for all the teachers who can engage physical education during class, to take brain breaks, to get kids up and moving. Sometimes our fear about technology, one of the fears is that the kids turn into, keyboard couch potatoes. And so it's really important that we teach them how to use these, but also how to balance that with not just finding yourself hunched over a keyboard night and day trying to be a good student. You have to be a healthy one. And so the physical aspect is part of it, and the Chromebook and the internet are resources for that. Let's see, let's go to my favorite subject, which is English. So we have a couple of things. I talked about the words of wisdom, and we start off usually in my classes with a discussion of that. But we also use this great site, which is called News ELA. And this provides articles across the disciplines in English language arts and science, and it provides articles that are written you can do it at different graded levels. We use 8th grade, and the articles sometimes provide quizzes and comprehension tasks, and they're very informative, well written. And here's an example of one. Time travel may be possible for certain tiny particles. And then the article goes on to explain what we, at this moment, think of as the limitations for that. So that happens to be a science one, but also just a really great regular resource. And if you're on that link and you scroll down, you can see that there are ones available in health and science and politics, and ones for younger and older people. Great website, ZLA. One of the resources we have our website, the MAU Middle School website, and that really helps you. You can also access just about everything from there. If you go to the MAU or MountAnthonyMiddleSchool.com website, you have a button for quick links, and the quick links can be just go this over a little bit for parents, for teachers, for students. I'll click for students right now and show you some of the things they can access from there. So their campus logon for Infinite Campus, if they want to check their grades, if they want to get on their Google Docs, what you just did, getting on the Google Drive right there, they have a shortcut from there. They can go on teacher websites. Some of the teachers use their websites for different levels of instruction. They also have the homework calendars. And so if you look at the homework calendar, that'll look much like the calendar I showed you a little while ago with homework assignments listed. If you go on to a teacher's website, one for example, there will be information about the team. That's my teaching team, about classroom expectations, about writing, about the curriculum, the scope and sequence, a little bit about the teacher, about our expectations for practice and homework, as well as these are 7th graders that I've mostly just met at the beginning of the year, and so we write them a welcome letter as well as for their parents, give them general information about the team. So the teacher's website is a regular resource also. And again, the use of the school website is the key to getting to all of these places. It's about lunchtime now. Students are curious about lunch, so they can quick log on their Infinite Campus and they'll see that, they'll find out what we had for lunch today. Let's see. So let's see, cheesy breadsticks, marinara sauce, hearty chili. Okay, and there's the words of wisdom from President Eisenhower, and a reminder that it was picture day. Students can access their grades, they can see what their attendance record looks like, all kinds of information here. And parents also, you're familiar with the parent portal, and you know that parents have a password and can also access essentially the teacher's grade book and know how their students are doing. Let's see, we got through lunch, and now it's after lunch, and we have to get to science. And so on our team, Mrs. Sweeney has a wiki page, and she says, welcome here. You'll find homework assignments and the forms and papers you'll need to complete those assignments. And so she has her due dates and current assignments listed, so students can go there, and they can access this anywhere they have the internet. They can go to the Bennington Free Library if they have technology at home. They can log on and they can get this from anywhere. Some of the students have foreign language or language arts. Foreign language largely uses the Chromebooks for writing pieces they have to do, but also sometimes for research about the culture, if it's French or Spanish. And then language arts uses one of the websites they like is this Flocabulary, educational hip hop. And of course, it's educational, but it's also something that the students enjoy using. So our language arts educator uses that program. It's about the end of the day for most students now. I think we got up to about 2:15, but that doesn't mean it's over. A lot of students like to stay here for after-school clubs and different activities. And I noticed that when I walk by the computer lab here, one of the popular activities is Minecraft, and so students continue to access technology and where they get on to things like Minecraft, where they can create and explore and have different types of games. When all is said and done, they return their Chromebooks to the case, plug them in, and one of the things, I don't know if Frank mentioned it, but one of the really nice things this year, these hold a charge and haven't had any situations where a student has had their battery run low or anything like that. They have plenty of charge left at the end of the day. So I know you have a busy agenda. I want to thank you for your attention, and especially for the support that you have given to us in providing the excellent hardware, these Chromebooks. That's been superior. I want to thank you for the support that you provided in terms of the tech people that help us when we're sitting in the seats that you are saying, I can't get on this site, or this doesn't work. And Mike Sullivan and Dave Hansen and Chris Aiken are always there and available, Johnny on the spot. And so that's made the use of this and the technology very easy and very enjoyable. So I'll return you to your regular agenda. Frank's still here if you have questions or anything that you wonder about. I'll throw the floor open for that right now.
Thank you very much.
Anybody have any questions for me before I duck? And Frank's here too.
Thank you.
Nelson?
How do you
Yeah,
shut it off?
you showed a lot of the various types of apps and stuff that they have. How many of these apps are free and how many do you actually have to pay for?
I think most of these are free. Yeah, there's a lot of very good free stuff. And the thing that I didn't spend a lot of time with, though, you're looking at a Google document on yours. And that's where students have their own folders, and they have a folder for English, they have a folder for science, folder for social studies, and they write they do their writing, and they save those in there. And that's a huge piece of it too. But that's more of the word processing piece. And I guess there are, for example, I didn't show you, there's a grammar website that I use that's kind of a quiz and instructional website, so students can use that to practice, especially if they have weaknesses and have difficulty understanding sentence structure and things like that. So there's no end to them. Dave is always coming around and saying, hey, have you looked at this? Have you looked at that? At some point it gets overwhelming. So you pick the ones you like and you pick the ones that work with kids. But we don't end up, some of these are subscriptions. Dave Hansen could speak to that.
If I may, I mean, very seldom are we able to do a school-wide purchase of a service that kids access on their Chromebooks. Also keep in mind that something free is not necessarily always free because we're providing the bandwidth and the support that's needed to support people in using free tools. There are some tools that either the state gives us help with. They have a deal with VoiceThread that we can buy that for the whole school for $300. So one of the things that I know you're going into budget season, sometimes on budget lines we have software lines. With devices like this, a line like that might need to, or you might need to think about changing that to subscription services line, where you are like you're basically subscribing to a license to use the product rather than in the past you purchased. That kind of thing. And a lot of things that we do here, we try to get a site license for it. We have Discovery streaming for teachers to use. We have Castle Learning. And Compass Learning is something that the curriculum office has purchased. But most of what we're able to do are the free things. And in current models, usually things are freemium, meaning there's a lot of components to it that are free, and then some of the cooler or more useful reporting things are what costs you more as you go on. But creative teachers are able to really find the free tools that they need.
Yeah, the reason why I brought up the apps is, people that are listening out there, most of them have cell phones today.
Sure.
They take apps and free apps.
Sure.
They have the same thing that you just said. You get so much free, and then you got to.
Sure.
So it's good that you brought up the fact of this licensing or service type contract that we should be thinking about budget, because I assume as more apps get put on, that could change in time.
Well, it really it does change, but I think it really depends on. You need to figure out what your goal is for using that particular tool, and then you say, well, the value of that is $1 per kid per year, or $2 per kid per year, or something like that. Wayne, if you would, can you go to the Chrome store and just pull up the free, just so they can see what that looks like? If you go to the app launcher, and then to the store icon on the front, right there. And then and then there's I think along the left there should be a free, but maybe not.
Oh, the name of anything, you can get a long list of what's available, and it will tell you if it's free or not.
Right.
And oftentimes there'll be apps that you could pay for, but you could get a free version that doesn't do quite as much. Well, they're looking for that. Just on these money-saving component of this, if you just think if teachers became adept and comfortable in using these devices with their students, the students are pretty much comfortable right off the bat, and they were sharing the documents. That's one of the things I was hoping we'd get to, is to show you how you can share a document and write comments and notes back to the students back and forth and have a conversation. If you think about a student at the high school taking 4 classes, or I don't know if teams, how many teachers are on a team? 4, roughly?
Yeah.
4 teachers. Okay, so if every kid gets 1 piece of paper a day from each teacher, each class, that's every kid gets 8 pieces of paper times, in the high school and the middle school, 1,600 kids roughly. Somebody else do the math on that. So what is that, 8,000, 10,000? Say 10,000, it's more than that. But say 10,000, how many reams of paper is that you're printing out in one day for every kid, for one teacher to hand out one piece of paper, plus the ink that's printed on that, which costs more per ounce than Chanel No. 5. Okay, think about that. There's a lot of money going right out the door. And if we change our practice and use devices like these that, I mean, the fact that Tim couldn't get on, that's the irony that is my life. I mean, that's just, that's just what happens. But I can guarantee you in the classroom, the students are given these at the beginning of the year, and within, if there is something wrong with the machine, after a couple of tries, because it's not as simple as, oh, I forgot to turn on the switch, and Mike or a technician has to figure out what the problem is. Once that problem is resolved, it's resolved. So the kids show up in Mr. Bell's classroom and they open up their cover to their Chromebook. It comes on.
Folder, instead of their notebook, here's all their documents in their English folder. So they want to look at their quiz, or they want to look at their notes.
Frank, if a student is
Notes
at
about the
home,
city, and they can pop this document right up.
Different.
And there it is.
Yes, you don't need a Chromebook to get to there. You just need to have a computer of any kind, anywhere.
Well, that's what I was
Or your
gonna
phone.
ask. That we put those things in the cabinet for the end of the day. We need to, what about those students at home? And how many of them actually have access to be able to get to these things? Because they can't get it all during the 8 hours. When they first come in, they pick it up, and then at the end of the day, they turn it in. At night, they need to be able to practice with some of this.
Yeah, let me address that, please, Leon. Two things. The first is, it's been brought up a number of times that, kids don't always have access at home. They don't have, they may just not have a computer at home. That's a legitimate issue. Sometimes they don't, but I think the majority do these days. I think the majority do. And that brings me to a question or a comment for you to ponder. Right now, the middle school and a whole bunch of other schools in SVSU, actually, had been using netbooks that are no longer supported by Microsoft. The Windows XP machines, they're not updated anymore, so they're not safe. As far as being in the enterprise, we can't manage them in the enterprise, but they could be managed at home. They've done their purpose, they've lived their life. Could these machines be sent home with kids that don't have machines at home? Because if they could, then that solves that problem. With the Chromebooks, by the way, they're updated every 2 weeks by Google. The operating system is updated in the cloud every 2 weeks by Google, no cost. It's always up to date. There's never going to be that kind of licensing problem where it's not supported anymore. So there are a whole lot of advantages to consider. And I really seriously would ask you to ponder, how could we get machines in kids' houses? Because they don't need the Chromebook to access the documents. They just need the internet. And that's where we're going to save our money.
that's right. Does anybody else have a question for any of you? Sue, would you like to make any comments
No.
on this?
I mean, it was well explained.
Sue, that's not like you.
Yeah.
Should be a long
Ken?
meeting, she said.
With this system, does it allow, because I know a guy who teaches out of Westfield, New Jersey in history, he was telling me they're gone completely paperless. He makes up the test, he sends it to the kids, to their computers.
Yep.
And then they take it and they send it back to him, he corrects it, sends it back, quizzes the same way.
Yep.
Reports, and there's no paper involved in the whole
Right.
school when it comes to running it, like you say, saving lots of money.
I read this great blog post the other day. It was about a father who took his kid to the library, and the kid loved the library. I mean, who wouldn't? There's books. I'm an English teacher. I like libraries. But notice the section for reference books. Encyclopedias. Why can't I take these home? And the father explained, first he said, what are these books that I can't take home? He says, well, that's where you would start your research on anything. You'd start looking in there and then see where that takes you. And the kid said, so it's like Wikipedia. And his father said, well, yeah, it kind of is. And the kid said, why would anybody be crazy enough to print out Wikipedia? And that struck me as like, yeah, who wants to print out the internet? You don't need to. But I'm sorry.
Can teachers send youngsters tests on?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, the wiki thing that you saw. And if
I'm sorry, I thought you were done, Ken.
With the right amount of professional development, anything is possible with these devices.
Ed?
Ed.
Question?
when somebody accesses the network from beyond the firewall, which is here, what do we have for security?
We have, first of all, Google has extremely wonderful security. People will argue with me about that, but they have billions of dollars invested in the security in their server farms around the world. So we've got that. But besides that, we spend quite a bit of money on making sure that our kids are secure. We have to. We have SIPA compliance that we need to deal with. We have firewalls in place. We have filters in place. We're checking this stuff constantly. As soon as we detect a problem, we address the problem. Now, that doesn't mean we're not going to be, continually facing problems, because people are going to be continually trying to do bad stuff. That's just the nature of people. So we do police it very well, I think. Is there a concern that we're not?
Well, I think one of the things that, with working in the cloud, basically what happens is they're not accessing your servers here at the school. What they're doing, they've got their data out there, they're going to sign on, they're going to work with what they have, and then submit it, which then will go to someone else's file. But they're really not breaking through the firewall and getting to your stuff that's here. Google's doing the protection up in the cloud, if I understand it correctly.
Yes.
Frank, is it?
But we have stuff, proprietary stuff here too.
Frank,
Yes.
is it possible for one student to harass another student and bring the rest of the people within that domain, in other words, whether it be the middle school or high school, so that he or she would be observing that harassment? In other words, can you, if I were a kid and wanted to get after another kid and I could put something negative about him on that, is there a way that then that would show up on all the Chromebooks within a given school?
There is a way. Oh, wait a minute. You mean if somebody were harassing a kid and then that gets spread to everybody?
Right.
Yeah.
I don't
It
have
sounds
an
like
answer.
what you're referring to is social media, and one of the things that's blocked is through our school network, the kids don't have access to Facebook. That said, the kids have that on their phone.
Right,
In our
I was
school, we
gonna
ask kids to
say,
keep them in their
it is a
lockers.
problem.
So,
It is yeah.
Facebook is a problem, but that's something that we,
Or Twitter.
in terms of the Chromebooks and our own technology, keep them pretty well locked out. Not to say that it can't be done in some ways, but.
That would
it's-
more likely happen on a tweet with Twitter on their phones,
And
which
these are-
we
these
do
are
run
things
up
that
against.
We typically don't give them access.
Tim, did you have something?
I think Mr. Bell touched upon it. Kids are figuring out, especially in Google Docs, you're able to share things with
Right.
kids. And so kids do engage in conversations, and that is something that we have to be attentive to as teachers. But it's also a teaching moment for middle schoolers who aren't thinking long-term when you pull that document up and say, let's talk about your off-task conversation for the last half hour. And that's always a look of shock, like, wow, someone's actually paying attention to this. Yes, we are. And so, it's a teachable moment for kids. Again, that the internet is forever and what you put up there. I would like to share one other thing, an educational piece. We at the middle school give map testing 3 times a year. All 3 grades, 600 kids. And in my first 2 years as a principal, it was a very disruptive process in the building. No fault of teachers and staff, but we had to dedicate a space, cycle classes through. It would disrupt the building for weeks, Mr. Hanson?
8 days.
8 days. And, inevitably we'd have a glitch, and so it'd be a 2-week process. We were able to test every 7th grader and every 8th grader, so that's 250, almost 500 kids in 2 days' time, and we had minimal glitches, and we were done. Right back into the learning, right back into school. And so if you multiply that over 3 opportunities during the school year, you're getting not days, but weeks back for teaching, which is a huge benefit for us.
That's great. Well, we should move on, but are there any other, I don't want to cut the conversation off before everybody has had a chance at least to express a concern or have a question answered. Anybody else have a question? Nelson, are you?
Well, one of the things, and it's future development, is are you thinking about doing web education? In other words, being able to have an English teacher here actually teach courses so it's at another school? Part of the things that you're hearing out there is that they're trying to figure out ways around Vermont. Is that something that we're thinking here?
We do it at the high school. We do, we have a virtual high school.
Mr. Hanson, you want to say something about that? You've done that, sir.
Well, I mean, of course, we want to increase whatever opportunities we can for kids. We're limited with teaching resources within these walls, and so it's silly to say, oh no, we're not going to look at Khan Academy as a resource, or we're not going to be a part of Virtual High School or the Vermont Virtual Learning Collaborative. Right now, there are middle school classes that take place in those two online environments. That's not something that we do with regularity, but absolutely we can do that. And Mr. Payne and I have discussions along those lines.
And at the high school, we're a member of Virtual High School. We have one of our teachers that teaches students throughout the United States, and several of our students take a course over the internet with teachers from around the United States.
Do you think of expanding on that? I know resources are the big issue, but if the resources were available, that's something that you're looking at as an expansion possibility? I'm just thinking of the number of kids going to school and all the rest of it. Because I know the state's going to ask elsewhere, and we're one of the larger schools.
Mm-hmm.
So some of the smaller schools might ask, what type of thing are we willing to adapt to in our teaching, which helps the overall cost, not only of us, but elsewhere. So,
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you very much. Is there anybody else who'd like to have us a question?
One last thing, those of you that are online, if you click that last link, that returns you to your own agenda. Here you go. So you can look at that.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Frank. Thank you, everybody. We can move on then to the financial report. The treasurer's report is included. Do we have a motion? We have a second?
Yes.
Thank you, Leon. All in favor? Aye. Opposed or abstentions? Move on then to the budget status. That's just for your information. Does anybody have a question for Rick? If not, we can move on to the kitchen renovation. Rick, would you just go over that quickly before we ask for a vote?
Yeah, I mentioned this a couple meetings back that we were doing this project. Some of you that have been around for a while will recall that we've been upgrading all the kitchens and all the buildings, and we kind of held off to Mount Anthony to be the high school to be the last one because we knew it was going to be a fairly major purchase, which as you can see that it is. There's some equipment that's been in there for over 30 years, so it does need a desperate upgrade. So the information sheet's in the packet. I'm not going to bother reading it. Hopefully it was fairly self-explanatory if we did a good job. We had two very solid bids. B&G Pittsfield was a low bidder. We've done a lot of work with them. Done a lot of work with both of them actually. So we didn't have any problem with either of them. But we're just recommending the low bid. I would just, under the motions, action requested, there's just a phrase typo that I didn't catch when I was editing this. It's not the fund balance, it's what you've got budgeted in your FY, the first motion that I'm asking you to make. Motion to transfer the kitchen equipment and the kitchen repairs from the budget line item in FY15 into the high school kitchen equipment.
Just to point out, this money has been budgeted,
Yep.
and the actual money that comes out of our budget is how much, Rick, of this? Of this $80,000?
14.
Total MA?
14,850 is coming out of your budget.
Okay,
62,957 is coming from the SVSU's food service budget.
okay.
I'll move it.
All right. Do we have any questions? Ed?
How does the SVSU get a fund? Is this a grant or federal funding?
No,
Or is it something where they assess it to MAU and
no.
then we're getting the money back?
No, the food service fund is an enterprise fund in and of itself, and it generates surpluses or deficits, as we operate the hot lunch program. We have been generating surpluses in that fund for at least the last 8 years by federal law, because the majority of that money is free and reduced lunch money. We are required to put that money back into the food service program, either by equipment, which we're doing here, or by improved quality of food, which we've done in the past. But that is money that's generated, I don't want to use the word profit, but it basically is a profit, a surplus that is generated within that program that we are required by law to put back into the program.
Thank you.
Which this is.
I get it now.
Okay, we have the second motion, a motion to award the kitchen renovation project to B&G. Should we put a dollar amount in there, Rick, do you think? I'd feel more comfortable if we had a dollar amount.
Yeah, you can, it's 80, what was it?
77?
50?
Oh, no, well, which motion are you doing?
I'm doing the motion where we award the kitchen renovation project to B&G.
Okay, well, that is a total of 77,807.30, of which your cost is only 14,850.
Right, but that's,
But the awarding of the bid is 77,807.30.
very good. Do we have a second to that motion?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Abstentions or noes? Very good.
And the motion to transfer the money?
So moved.
Second.
All right. Transfer the money. Let's see if we can word that a little bit better. What should it? Motion to transfer middle school kitchen equipment and high school kitchen repair fund
Budgets.
balance.
Budgets. Eliminate fund balances and say
Okay.
budgets
Budgets.
into the high school kitchen equipment
Okay.
line.
Very good. Richard, did you get that?
Yep.
Okay. Once again, all in favor? Opposed or abstentions? Very good. I had a request that, and I truthfully can't remember, I've been to so many meetings recently, I can't remember, but Rick has explained it as, for the reason that we didn't join one of the federal food programs for everybody, and I had a request just to, was it at this meeting or another meeting?
I don't know, I've talked about it a couple different
First
meetings,
at
so.
the BSD meetings where it first came out, so you might have seen it on, if you were watching that meeting, that was where.
It's been in the paper.
Anyway, would you just explain what it is and?
Yeah, there's a program out that attempted to create free breakfasts and lunches for everyone in our school system. As I think Dave or someone said earlier, there's no such thing as free, and there are some strings attached and there are some costs to it. The biggest hurdle is that it's based on the direct certifications that come from the Department of Children's and Families out of Montpelier, which we're currently having difficulties with, especially at the high school, that we just got those certifications in, and there's a couple hundred kids that are left off it that should be on it, and we're trying to track those down. The problem is they use those numbers as a baseline. They require you to generate a certain percentage above that as free and reduced lunch. If you don't make that, the district is required to make those payments for everybody so that they're all free and reduced. We would no longer have the surpluses we have if we were to do this program. The other problem is all of our title money is tied off of the free and reduced lunch participation. And although they say that our SU money, and that comes into the SU as an umbrella grant, but there are restrictions of how we can spend that in certain districts depending on their free and reduced lunch population. Depending on what our participation was in that program, some districts may win or lose in shifting of those title dollars. And we weren't prepared, based on my recommendations, to enter into this program. This was the first year, it's a new program. Assuming it will continue, and if they get the bugs worked out, maybe we'll go into it at a later date, but too many risks from my perspective at this point to enter into it.
Very good. Anybody have a question on that? Dave or anybody?
I guess it's still a little confusing unless you've
It's very
studied it
it's
as
very
much as-
confusing.
As you, I'm sure have, right? I guess the question I had was, assuming this is a program that is available in future years, will we be able to consider participating next year? And by we, I mean not the middle school? Was it just the middle school that was eligible?
Oh, no, well, it's, see, that,
Because it wasn't every district in the SU, I don't
well,
think.
there was another problem to it, because we run our food service as an SVSU-wide food service program, which is what the state wants us to do. The state uses us as a model, that this is the way it should be run. However, some of these qualifiers are for specific schools. So we would have to run it as an SU program. There are the risks that we can't make those thresholds that they want us to meet, which would require the district, instead of spending the $68,000 on the new equipment, we would have to be buying meals for everyone in the system.
If yeah.
But I'm assuming, I mean, it's a program that a lot of people are pushing. I'm assuming it's gonna be around next year. The two districts I know that entered into it this year are both supervisory districts. They're standalone K-12 districts, which makes it easier to apply that premise.
Right.
And you gotta realize, the federal government doesn't understand what the state of Vermont's governance structure is like.
Right.
And it's just another convoluted.
So that was the question, is whether other SUs or districts have overcome the.
I'm only aware of two supervisory districts, Rutland and Winooski, I think, and those are standalone K-12 districts.
And my limited understanding of the reasons for having the program in the first place was that by eliminating the distinction between those eligible for a free and reduced and everybody else, you would eliminate a lot of paperwork on both sides of the equation. That rather than have to now figure out who has to pay, presumably we're paying somebody here in the district to keep track of that, send home notices when you're late, that would all go away because.
In theory, that's what they think. But the problem is, it's all based on this direct certification that comes from DCF, which our history shows has not been, A, timely, and B, accurate. And without that, we would still have to do a lot of backup to try to track down all this information.
Rick, would that, if the program was instituted, would that eliminate the social stigma of applying for a free and reduced meal?
Yeah,
I don't think that social stigma ends up anymore.
I don't think there is social stigma because
Okay.
no one knows, the kids just put in a code, everybody
walks
has
through
a
and
code
just-
that it all looks the same.
Their
I
pad,
didn't
nobody
realize
knows
that.
who gets what,
Yeah.
when, or how.
Okay, very
That
good.
was solved
Yep,
10
years
years
ago.
ago.
Okay. I wasn't aware of that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, we can move on then. We motion to accept the consent agenda. This second, Leon will ask for questions in a minute. Do you have a second?
Well, like we saying we wanted, I like to separate it out so we can discuss some things on there.
We can vote on each individually, or we can pass it all and then you can go to
One
it.
section, I like to take all the nominations out.
Just the one section.
Okay, well, everything except for nominations, which would be minutes, warrants, and field trips. Do you have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed or abstentions? We can move on then to nominations. Leon?
All the nominations, and I looked at several of them, and here's what they're people that we've had in the organization for a while. But one of the things that we had come before us several times in the past, and we wanted to make sure that we have more than one individual, regardless of whether the individuals are being selected one fall, winter, or spring again, have a conversation with more than one individual before they move through the process in terms of a recommendation for these particular jobs. And I see that all of these are still having to go from one individual. I mean, we may not have a one, or we may not have, you may have two, but we wanted to have somebody else in the district, in the school system, be responsible for being part of that okay process before we move on, regardless of who they are. And so when the problem occurred, and if we had a problem, it wouldn't be one individual that see something that may not need to pass on. It would be 2 or 3 or whatever along that line, because these nomination forms have the first person, first we have applicants that we say that how many we got, we get 1, 2, 3, and then they get interviewed by the immediate person, and that immediate group should be more than 1, because the next thing is they get passed on to either the principal or the superintendent along that line, and it's too late at those particular times if there's something that need to come up. And we've had several times in the past where we then hear things from parents and so forth. And to eliminate that is to say, wait a minute, we have more than one person. Be part of that. I thought Dave was gonna be part of something and somebody else was gonna be part of something else to try to help take the stigma off that.
I understand what you're talking about. Let me make a suggestion that maybe Tim and Sue and Tim, and maybe Dave, you'd like to get in on it and see if we could come up with a recommendation.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, I'm a little, yes.
So I'm looking through the high school ones. Tim talks to me about it, so I'm part of the process.
Then you should
And then
be.
I talked to, actually, we had conversations today about it, because Jim goes through each one. So what, in addition to that, besides the athletic director, the principal, and the superintendent?
You talk to Tim or you talk to the individual?
Well, I talk to these individuals all the time.
Then your
They
name
work
should
for
be
me.
on there.
It is.
It should
My
be up
name's
there
on
at the
all of them.
very first round is what I'm saying.
It
On the
is.
high school one, it
It
does,
is.
there is 2 names.
It's got a whole bunch of them on here. That's why I said it was a whole.
Right.
whole
Yeah.
different
Okay,
bunch.
we could go on here. I think, why don't we take a look at it and
Do you want to remove these from action for this meeting, and we'll make sure
I would recommend
that
we
we
take a
return it
look
with...
back at them again, because and make sure that we've done what we said we wanted to do. If the high school's got them on there, Sue don't have a problem.
It says Tim and me on them, and then I know I
The
spoke
high
to
school
Jim about it.
has
Okay.
2 names for each nomination.
Yeah. All right.
Middle school has 1, so I'm
Okay.
sure we could remove the middle school from consideration from this evening, and then the principal can make sure that a second person at least, and I understand your point, Leon, we've had this before, that you want at least 2 eyes looking at every applicant.
Right.
Or 2
Okay,
sets of eyes, sorry.
let me just be sure I get it right. So I'm asking for a motion to accept the nominations for the high school as presented. That would be just the high school.
I'll second that.
Okay.
I'll move that.
Okay, do we have, very good. Any discussion? Yes, Ken?
Are these all winter nominations? They'll all
Tim?
perform their duties?
Clubs.
They're year-round. The winter nominations,
Okay, clubs are your own.
they should be in the next board meeting.
Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Ed, did you have a question?
No, I was gonna comment that most of these people are already employed,
They all are.
Yeah,
They all are,
and
just about.
the principal knows who they are. And I would think that if they're currently an employee and the principal knows them, I don't know that we need to go through another round of interviews. If it was somebody from outside the district who was applying, then yes, it'd be appropriate to have 2 or more people interviewing them.
Well, I think that the board's gonna have to decide which way they wanna go on this, because what I clearly hear every time is there's always gonna be a difficulty with these nomination forms if there's not at least 2 names on it. So that was oversight on this, on my part, lack of oversight this time on the middle school nomination, so we can correct that. I hear what you're saying, Ed, that we know these people, it's not outside applicants, but I think we can appease Leon's concerns very easily, that the principal, when he makes these nominations, will make sure that there is at least a second name on that form.
And I gave an example, this, whether they were inside or outside, we had problems in the past with individuals that wasn't worthy of a particular position, and it was brought up by parents and some other people, and it still showed up here. And so what we're saying is have more than one person do
Yeah,
that. That's all.
Right, I think we're all set, we have a motion, the motion was passed, and it would be that the high school people will be approved, and Tim will work on getting at least two people to sign off on the applications for the middle school. Are you comfortable with that,
Well, I
Tim?
just want clarification that,
Sure.
I view Tim Brown as, facilitator for co-curriculars, so is his signature sufficient for the middle school as well? And if so, then I can just attach that to the document.
Sure.
Yeah,
Okay.
Jim?
I would concur, and then we'll double check on that. I'll discuss that.
That's what should be.
Okay,
Yep.
so are we going to create any hardships by not having those people approved at the middle school?
This time.
I don't know when the pay period for some of these are. I mean, some of these clubs
It
are,
doesn't come up till,
December.
not till December, so
so,
it'll be all
yeah,
right.
we should be fine.
We'll have
We'll do it in
another,
November.
I think the meeting's on the 19th or something, the next meeting. Okay, we can move on then. Leon, are you comfortable with that?
Exactly, good.
Very good. Okay, administrators report, Sue McGuire, new course.
Yes, it's in the packet. This would be a course for 11th and 12th grade students who have taken biology. There's been a lot of interest by many of the students talking about current issues around modern medicine and biology, such as cloning and organ donation, genetic engineering, those type of conversations. And one of the biology teachers would like to offer that as a short block course. There is no money that would need to be added to do this, and we never run any of these if it doesn't have enough students that sign up for it. So it would be just another offering for kids that are interested in the field of medicine and biology.
There was an explanation in the packet on that. Does anybody have a question for Leon?
I have one.
Yep.
I thought, and I don't know whether this went through the education committee or not.
Yes, it did.
It did?
Well, to
Because
clarify that,
recommendation,
There
well,
was
that's what
not
I
a
wanted. We
meeting of
said,
it.
these particular things need to go to the education committee, and that the education committee needed to answer these particular questions that we're talking about. Maybe we want to ask here is, what is the load, and how it fits in with the
We
curriculum
did,
and discussion and so
Right.
forth.
Go
So if
ahead,
you
Dave.
did, that's all I
Well,
wanted.
it was mine to, go ahead.
I did, when this recommendation came in the packet, I did question the principal on that, and she said there was no formal meeting of the education committee, but she did address it with the members of the education committee. So
exactly.
there was not so I don't want anybody to think that a meeting was held, so I want to be clear on that. There was no
Dave
meeting
can
of the
explain.
education committee.
Yeah, Dave, yes.
Yep, so Sue and I discussed, first of all, whether there was a need to have a meeting of the education committee. I should say second of all, because first of all, we discussed what was being proposed, and then secondarily, should the committee meet. My sense was that rather than set up a meeting 30 minutes ahead of time, we could set aside 10 minutes during the meeting, probably answer any questions that might be necessary. And there seemed like there were 3 or 4 things, and we've already discussed 2 or 3 of them, questions that people might have.
Very good.
But I'd be interested to hear whether anyone has feedback on that and thinks that this should have been handled by the education committee.
Well, I think Sue said something about the fact that there's no money having to be added on to the case load or whatever it is. The individual, and I have no idea here where this is gonna fit in the whole scheme of things. It's gonna take the place of something else.
Certain years, certain short blocks run, and other ones run different years. It depends on the interest from the students. So this would take the place probably of another science short block for that particular year when it ran. If it became very popular, then it would run every year.
So we're just approving this, whether it's gonna be done or not, is what I'm trying to make sure I understand.
Absolutely, because if you don't have enough kids that sign up for it, we don't run them. Is that what you're asking?
Well, yes, that's one of the
Yes.
things that I was asking. If we don't have enough kids, which we talked about class size, and the other
Right.
one was what this is gonna take the place of, and who's gonna be the person that's gonna actually do this and have the time to do it like
Yeah, do you
it
want me
should be
to
done.
name
That's-
the teacher?
That's the kind of thing that if education, and you looked at that, those are the kind of questions that we need to have with an education committee meeting, is to discuss that and lay it out than to have to do it here at the big board for this,
Yeah.
and it would have passed right on. And I wouldn't be asking these kind of questions because we need to meet education-wise.
Okay, are there any other questions on this? Okay, do I have a motion then to?
Wait.
Oh, sorry, Ed.
The purpose of this is what?
The purpose is that it's current issues in modern medicine and biology that, I mean, I think it's very relevant to students that are going into medicine. You're nodding as a pharmacist that this is,
I wish it was offered when I was at the high
Yes.
school level.
yeah. I mean, I think it's very relevant for our kids that are going into any kind of medical field.
Why aren't we routing those kids over to the CDC, to the health?
Well, many of those kids are going over to the health program. But this is a little different thing that delves into just one piece of medicine. I don't know if you want to speak to that, Rob, as a medical person.
I mean, you touched on it, I mean, the bioethics, the medicine, you know, where we're going in the future with cloning and the different, you know, biosimilars.
And it seems to be a real interest of the students, which is why this biology teacher brought it up.
But that's not what's in question, it's the format in which we brought this in to be able to do this and to look at all the alternatives in terms of how this fit into with all the other courses and whether we've touched all the bases before we bring on a new course. That's what's supposed to happen at the education committee.
Yeah.
Okay, are there any other questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Are you planning to offer this course this spring?
No.
So it
This
wouldn't
would
be
be
until
offered
next.
next year. We're all set for
till next
courses
fall.
for this year. Everything's signed up. This
So,
would be for next year.
so it is possible then to wait a little bit longer and review this because if it's not going to be offered in the spring semester, then we could review and address Leon's concerns about where this is all going to fit into the rest of the curriculum, what the impact is, because you're not going to do a program of studies before the next meeting.
Yes, we're doing the program of studies is done by the end of November.
Right, and course
So-
registration will start after the first of the year.
Right, but we have to send the program of studies at the end of November to get it printed.
Yeah.
I'm fine, whatever.
Well-
you
Yeah,
wanna do.
I personally, as superintendent, I think I'd like to, now that I've heard some of these other questions tonight, I think
Okay.
I'd like to, at least to meet with you and address
right,
that a little
sure.
bit further, and maybe we can address it, or have an education committee, one or the other.
Okay.
Okay, well, we'll leave it then that Sue and Jim will get together
Okay.
and if they feel after that there should be an education meeting, we'll contact Dave and set one up. And that isn't going to be a hardship, Sue?
No,
Okay.
Have they written a course syllabus for this year?
say it again, what?
Have they written the course syllabus for this year?
It's not all written because he wouldn't do that before he knows whether it's gonna
All
be
right, so,
a go.
Okay, we can move on then. Hockey proposal. Who's going to jump into that? Tim?
Yeah. No, we're still in high school.
The proposal that I believe you've all at least seen or been given a copy of is actually, it's a Burton Academy proposal. It's not our proposal. They're looking to allow, for the school board to give the principal permission to sign off so that Mount Anthony students can go play hockey at Burton. There's a clause in the Vermont Principals Association called member to member. And the reason that was put in place was oftentimes there are schools that have a program that doesn't quite have enough kids to run, and there are kids in outlying districts where their school doesn't offer that sport, that those kids can go and play on that other school's team. It's something I've had to make a lot of calls to educate myself on because it's never been a factor at Mount Anthony because we're a large enough school that we don't need the member. If we took kids in from, Arlington to play football or wrestle or, Twin Valley, because they don't offer those sports, they would be displacing our kids. So I have asked around because I had a feeling there'd probably be some questions. But in a nutshell, my recommendation in talking to Sue would be that, we would want to support, the kids in this community having a chance to play hockey. Right now, a lot of them go to Troy, Saratoga. They play on travel teams. They pay a lot of money to play on these teams because we don't have a hockey team. So I would certainly not want to prevent kids from having the opportunity to go out and play. Burton would be charging, the cost I got from Kathy Beerworth, the athletic director there, was they would be charging $600 for a student to play at Burton. They would not be taking on any of the responsibility of travel, to and from Burton for practices, and I'm assuming they can travel on the bus to get to the games when Burton goes. But my feeling in sharing with Kathy was that the best chance of getting the support of this board and our principal was that, number one, there was no financial commitment tied, that there was no liability or health insurance risk on our part. And then I had a discussion with Sue about what the ramifications would be if kids missed class time, because that's a factor. If they have practice at 6 in the morning, or they have a hockey game at 6 o'clock up in St. Albans, kids are going to need to get out of school, to leave early and that kind. So those are the kind of questions I had a feeling you would probably want to know about. But as far as we're concerned, all we're saying is they have our blessing. Principal has to sign off saying, yes, we are agreeing that they can go and play hockey at Burton. So that's where we're at.
Are there any questions of Tim or Sue or anybody? Yes.
So, I didn't get to see the proposal, it wasn't out there on the website as far as I know. So you're saying each student that wanted to play for Burton, we'd have to pay $600 plus?
No, I'm sorry.
We'd be responsible?
The parents, the families would be responsible for paying the $600.
It wouldn't be the school? I
No.
thought we talked
And
about that.
transportation to and from Burton to their bus?
Yeah, the way I look at it, instead of them going to Troy, they're driving to Manchester. And instead of playing on the Troy travel team, they're playing on the Burton high school hockey team. And I did find out the families can pay directly to Burton. Because I thought that was a key piece, because my fear was that if parents were supposed to give the checks to us and then us give the checks to Burton, we would be taking on some kind of responsibility, but we don't have to. So all we really have to be doing is saying, yes, our board is allowing our kids to go there to play hockey, assuming no responsibility, no liability, no travel. No cost. We're just saying it's okay.
So would there be no liability?
There'd
on
be
this?
no liability.
I'm looking at,
I don't know, I gotta check with the insurance company.
yeah.
Now, having said that,
Doesn't feel great to me.
yeah, having said that, I would follow up by saying it would probably be in our best interest if Sue has to sign off this, because they have a 4 or 5 page document that, for the parents to spell out their training rules, their academic rules, all those things. I think it would be a good idea for us to have just a 1 page document that spells out that we take on no financial responsibility, no liability, health, and,
I would think our attorneys
Yeah.
need to be involved.
Yeah.
Those aren't worth the paper.
They aren't worth anything unless an attorney.
Well, I would like to think the contracts that we have parents and students sign are worth something.
They're not worth anything legally if something happens.
I think,
sign
Nelson,
the
did you have
rights away.
something?
Yeah, what do we do now with the kids that play hockey in Troy and elsewhere? How do we handle that?
Absolutely nothing. It's not our
It's
business.
not a school sanction, this is becoming a school sanctioned sport.
That's what I want, what's the difference to going to Burton and down there? So it sounds like we're accepting the fact that it becomes a sanctioned
I think,
sport for us, which then at that point, I think puts liability.
well, we can't answer that question. I think, Tim, before the board votes on this, we need 2 questions answered. One, have an attorney take a look at it and see if we do have any liability responsibility. And either Jim Rick or.
I'll make sure that we
That
review
we
this.
check with
Do you
our-
have this document, Tim, the
Insurance?
4-page document?
I have a copy of it in my notebook.
But that's something we could
Tim
have our
has it.
attorney review?
Yeah, we'll have a review and we'll get back to the board, and that would take care of your questions.
Yeah, so, he mentioned a lot of stuff leaving the school early here and wanting to be excused is something that we definitely don't want, really.
Well, we,
to happen, I mean, but
well,
we
we
need
do
to
it
look
for
at that.
all the other teams.
We do it for our other.
It will be no different than whatever teams formats that we do now.
Right,
I'll put it
okay,
that
we,
way.
yes.
Okay.
Very quickly, two things. Is it a co-ed team? And
No,
do we
they have a
any
girls'
idea?
hockey team and a boys' hockey team. And the VPA rule is they can only accept up to 5 kids. I'm guessing the way it would be is however many kids they need, because they've also made this proposal to Mill River, which doesn't have hockey, is they'll have tryouts.
Yeah.
All of the Burnburt kids have to make the team, and then whatever openings they have left, they will have kids try out. Yes.
Dave Frederickson?
Yeah, Tim, that line about liable traveling to and from practices and/or games, did you get that squared away, the games
Never heard
part?
back from her.
We're having an attorney look into those things, and I'm sure that Steve, whoever we have, will do a good job of it. But you just may want to emphasize points like Dave has brought up, you know. And did you have another question, Dave?
Yeah, just remember a year or so ago, the board talked about the swim team. And I'm wondering, is this the same situation in reverse? We have swimmers participating for the Mount Anthony team who come from Arlington and maybe BBA, but I seem to remember not BBA at the time. They didn't want to have this kind of.
BBA was there too.
They were, okay, but in any case, how is that any different? Is that the
It's
same
different in
program?
that swim team is not a varsity sanctioned sport by the BPA, as hockey is. There's also another element in that we participate as a swim team in the Berkshire League, so we were abiding by the Berkshire League rules in order to continue. Without the Berkshire League, we wouldn't have a swim team because we'd have nobody to swim. So it is a little more complicated than, it's not a good comparison.
And did you say that it would only be yearly?
Yeah,
Like,
it's
they only
only a
wanna
one,
do
you
this
know.
for a year.
My concern is a student, let's say a freshman that goes and plays hockey at Burton this year, and then the hockey numbers grow at Burton, and they say no next year.
So then our kid comes out of one like down in near Albany, and they go to Burton, and then it's not available the next
Well,
year.
that may be a question that you could bring up with our athletic director.
And again, my difficulty with all this is that it's not our proposal. It's not something that it's not something I'm trying to, sell you here tonight. It's something that Burton's trying to sell us, and we just want to make sure that, that you guys are comfortable and are supportive of this.
Tim, do you have a deadline for when they're going to need an
November
answer?
17th is when tryouts will begin for hockey. I don't know what the date of the next board meeting is, but I think the other difficulty, and I thought we had a parent here, but he may have left. The other difficulty is that there may be parents of kids who have to make a decision soon whether they're going to continue to do Troy or whether they're going to go Burton or whatever. So.
Do you have a good deal of interest among parents or students to apply for
I've heard from 2 parents. I'm sure the financial piece will be a factor for a lot of kids, maybe not for these 2 families. I'm sure the time, getting to practices. My guess is that the travel teams, like in Troy and stuff, don't practice every day. Again, not having hockey, not ever doing member-to-member before,
Do you know what
I'm learning, too.
Burton's practice schedule is, and do they practice in the morning before school?
I believe it's different times, when the rink is available.
So we
But
don't.
some of it is before school.
Yeah, so we really don't have enough information to make that decision, because it's one thing that we do early dismissal for our own sports teams. It's another if their practice time, morning practice time might work for a Burton student because they're close by to school, but then factor in the travel time, they could be significantly late for school.
Yeah, and again, if this was a co-op, which you've all heard of that term, where
Yes.
two schools neither school has enough kids for a team, so they co-op together.
Yeah.
Like South Burlington and CVU do that with girls hockey, and they're the South Burlington, CVU hockey team. They're sharing responsibility of the finances, the liability, this is not that case, so,
Well, we could go on, but why don't we start at least by finding out what, our attorney would say.
So if you can get me that form?
We can follow through, and if you feel that there is enough interest among the students that would warrant a special board meeting to do this, if the deadline is the, what did you say, the 15th or something, we can always have a meeting. But first of all, let's get the information we need.
To get the information you need, I'm gonna need you to give me questions.
Well, we just had them. We had the insurance, the liability.
Practice schedule.
The practice
if they know it,
schedule. Trying to think, I guess those were the three main ones.
How many students would be interested?
Up to 5 is
Up to
all,
5.
all we could have is 5 slots, right?
Right.
And they would have to be competitive.
I think Burn Burton still has a rotating schedule, so depending upon the time of their practice, that could be an impact on the students, and I think the student needs to be involved in reviewing whether or not that would impact.
Because for us, we don't have the rotating, so they'd miss like first block every time.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, that's the schedule that we talked about.
So-
That's one of the three things
That
that
could be
Jim.
an educational impact.
Ken?
I think it just gives the kids an opportunity. Hockey's a very expensive sport with the practice time. And I know in the Berkshires now, they used to have 8 or 9 hockey teams, now they're down to 2. They're down to 2, and it's all co-op. I mean, one team is made up of 4 different schools, another team's made up of 4 different schools. The ice up in Manchester this summer wasn't even made because they didn't have enough interest and commitment by the kids and the adults to continue making ice in the summer. So it's waning, and I know they've been going with, 14 kids on a team when you can get up to 20. So I think that they're looking just to survive, I think, up there.
Well, that very well may be true. Are there any other questions of Tim? Thank you.
Well, one thing on the swim team, Tim makes us get the health cards from each kid who's swimming to show that their parents has health insurance in case the kid would, break an arm, leg, or need to get to the hospital, that they have insurance within the family to cover their injuries.
Very good.
Tim, it would be helpful, I think, if you could talk to their athletic director on what their typical practice schedule was last year, and do they think that it will follow the same pattern this year? And that might help alleviate some of the fears.
Okay.
Very good.
Great luck. You have to
Tim
practice
Payne?
from 6
Or Sue, do you have anything else?
No,
a.m.
The one thing that I'd like to inform the board of is that next Thursday, which is the 23rd, we will be having 2 activities on campus. There are 2 separate activities. Our Farm to School group, which is connected to the Ag Committee, is hosting an event during the day for staff and students, a harvest festival. And we have a number of activities planned. So if folks see a march of pumpkin figures out in front of the school at about 2 o'clock on Thursday, don't be alarmed. It's part of a planned activity for us. And then that evening of the same Thursday evening at 6:30, we're going to be hosting families here in the cafeteria. We're doing a presentation on title services in the building and also the new Go Math program that's been introduced into the middle school. So there's been a robocall that went home, a correction that went home, and then we're going to be sending out invitations to our new 6th grade parents. So we anticipate some folks in the building as that. One other reminder, in case folks were wondering, this is safety week at the middle school, so you see a lot of rescue squads and fire engines. The hook and ladder was here yesterday, just in case folks are traveling up and down East Road and worried that the building is somehow experiencing an event. We are not. It's purely educational.
Thank you, Tim. Any questions for Tim? Move on then, student report.
Okay, so school's moving pretty quickly. We're nearing the end of fall sports. Teams are moving into playoffs next week. Senior night games have been started this week. Seniors are starting to apply to colleges. We have a couple of field trips coming up. Tomorrow, students from the AP European History and AP English class are going to the Clark Art Institute. And next week on Tuesday, myself and many other math students are going to Mac Molding, and it's a field trip, and the people at Mac Molding are going to talk about like manufacturing and engineering, and we're going to relate it back to calculus and other concepts that we're learning in math.
Very good. How many, Stu, maybe how many colleges are make an appearance at the high school to interview people?
how many college or what?
Colleges make an appearance at the high school to interview kids.
Geez, I mean, I can get you a number, they're there a lot, and you hear the announcements a lot, but I could get you a number.
Well,
Tonight
I'd just
is,
be interested, how many?
tonight's actually a college night going on at the high school, college awareness night that's happening right now. But I can get you a number, I don't want to guess as to the number.
One of the reasons that I'm in it, I would like to see us work on encouraging more students to take advantage of going on to some educational opportunities after the high school. But Leon?
Well, I was gonna ask, whether we had every senior scheduled to meet with somebody.
It's all part of a big plan over the 4 years, and I think Morgan can talk a little bit about that. So they all meet with several people, but not everybody, for various reasons, is going to go on to college. I
Right,
mean,
but
sometimes it's financial.
That's true, but
Sometimes,
I know some people that was just allowed to be exposed to the recruiters for the college, and then they got interested.
yeah.
So
and-
I'm saying that every senior that's gonna graduate, whether it be some type of college,
Right, right,
required
or
to
a
go through
trade
that
school.
process, or trade school,
yep.
or whatever along that line. That just don't, I mean, it's not just left
Yeah.
up to them to say, I wanna go or
Right,
not
no,
go.
no, to be encouraged and to be, and we have, right now, we have 40 kids taking a college course at CCV, and which really also gets them interested, because they might not see themselves as a college student, but then they take a college course and all of a sudden they think this is something I can do. So we do have many kids both semesters. Do you want to speak to that, Morgan?
Sure. As far as the colleges that like come to the school and offer like sessions that talk about admissions requirements, what the school is like, those are well advertised. We post them on a board that in like one of the main hallways of the school, and they're also often on the announcements. So
And on Naviance.
Yeah, and
Everybody has signed up on an internet program called Naviance,
Yep.
all parents and students,
Right,
where
but,
we talk about all that
but
stuff
we
all the
still
time.
go through, what I'm still not hearing is, through the guidance, every senior is exposed to that. And we know that for a fact that nobody's slipping through the crack.
Everybody's exposed to that.
just a couple weeks ago, we did through the classes there. We got like a big senior packet that had everything like you needed to know about what you needed to do as a senior to be prepared, and it had all of the lists of like colleges that were coming and like all the information that you would need to be prepared to apply to college or whatever people were considering.
And we also have, besides tonight, we have also trying to pay for college night, where we try to help people that are worried about the money part of it. So we give a series of a lot of different,
So if I asked a question, last year, all the seniors from the guidance department or whatever was exposed, and every one of them went and sit down at the table to talk to some recruiter
not necessarily with a
along that
recruiter.
line. So
Not
that's what I'm trying
necessarily
to find
with a
out.
recruiter.
What depths of effort that we made to make sure we get all of them out here exposed in some form or fashion
Yeah.
by saying every student has some kind of potential.
Yes.
Then
And
we
I
made
would
sure
say
that
this,
they took advantage of that.
every student speaks to an adult about their future, their career, whether it's career, college, trade school, you know, what their plans are for the future. I would guarantee that every single student has those conversations.
And they're definitely given multiple opportunities to sit down and speak with a college recruiter should they choose so.
Okay,
Hey, Tim,
yes.
also you gotta mention that great college fair you run in April, where you have
Yeah.
over 100 colleges, and you run through all the 10th graders, 11th graders, and
Right.
12th graders.
So
really
it
they get
starts early on.
3 years. They
We
get
have
3
a
years of
sophomore career
exposure.
summit coming up in February that we have every year.
And it's very
to expose-
casual. The kids
yeah.
can go and just talk to the people,
Yeah.
get hand waved. I mean, it's really a quality college fair that you run up there in April.
And the college fair runs all day, so students can
Yeah,
go when
and if
it's
a kid doesn't
convenient for
get
them.
exposed after 3 years of opportunity, I mean, you can't take them by the hand and walk them over and say, here, talk to the person, and you do your best.
Okay, we can, anybody else like to have a comment on that? If not, we can move on then. to the committee reports. We have an ag committee, Nathan or Dave, or how we're going to do this?
Well, as you can see, exciting things are happening in the garden out here. We have a greenhouse in the process of starting to, ground being prepared for that. Other structure is being staked out, and thanks to Alan Baker and a lot of other very good resources we have for the agriculture committee, you've learned quite a bit about the agricultural programs in Alberta. And what Tim talked about, the agricultural fair they have here. So I think things are coming along very well. And just parenthetically, I'd say that we really have to get the idea, Tim mentioned that some people might want to go into agriculture. My concept is everybody has to go into agriculture at some point, because at some point we're going to realize that you've got to feed yourself. My wife and I have a combined age of 151, and we grew 200 pounds of onions and 17 squash and canned 40 quarts of tomatoes and had all kinds of other greens. So I think we have to really get the idea across that agriculture has to be a part of everybody's life.
Well, it's great to see the progress that's being made with the work that's being done by the Ag Committee and the middle school and things. And I noticed I didn't read the whole article, but I noticed in the paper there was a large article about an individual in Pownell that's done quite well in developing organic, I'm not sure it's organic, but in developing food, naturally grown food, not coming from some big co-op. I know Dave could speak to that for hours, but. Okay, anybody else like to comment on that? Tim, did you have anything? Very good, we're moving ahead. Then, I do not have a report. We have a number of topics to discuss at the executive session. Policies?
Yes, we have one policy, grade advancement, retention, promotion, acceleration of students. Policy number 6350. We've been working on this policy for years, I have to say, and it's still, and I mean that it shouldn't have taken this long to get to this point for this policy, because this is a policy that affects the middle school and the high school, grade advancement, retention, promotion, and acceleration of students. And we have to nail this down so that everybody can understand what goes on in that process. And it's not an easy one to be able to document all the circumstances surrounding all of those topics. So what you got in here is where we are now for a warning. And if you have other questions and so forth along that line, policy meeting will be meeting again to look at these things, and quite sure we'll need to have some administrative regs around some of the things, because some of the things that we took out of the policy or cut out to try to make it easy, some of the parents are asking those particular questions, and what we're trying to do is get away from the fact that we don't have documented what is needed for all the individuals to be able to see and read and understand without having to go and talk to us, our administrators, or some for along that line when it comes to policies and procedures.
So what do you want from us tonight?
Warning.
Okay. Do we have a warning? Do we have
So moved.
second for the warning?
Second.
Any discussion? Well, this is just a warning. I'm sure that there'll be considerably more work done on it before we actually have a motion to adopt it. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? Very good. The superintendent. Sorry, Jeff.
That's right. I'll be brief because most of what I need to discuss with you this evening is some matters in executive session, but bring you up to date on a couple of things. This coming Monday is a system-wide professional development day on the 20th. I want you to be aware of that. Our principals and the staff in their building and our director of curriculum instruction and assessment have been, and our assistant superintendent have been working hard in planning the activities for that day. And I think that I like what I've seen so far. I will be part of one of the groups myself on that day on the 20th. So. Also on the 20th, you should be aware at 4 o'clock on the 20th, the teacher negotiations begin. Your representative and the administrators have been meeting to prepare for that. And so our first meeting with the teachers will be Monday the 20th at 4 o'clock. I anticipate all we will be doing that day is setting the ground rules and the meeting schedule, negotiating schedule for that. And then there'll be a work meeting after that for all the members of the board and administrator negotiating team to continue to work on what the initial package will be. Couple of things that I've been working on since we last met, let you know that I am moving forward on some things. We're conducting a job classification study at the central office. I have concerns about equity and fairness on how we treat all the employees there, everything from compensation to responsibilities. And we do want employees who are content and happy in their job. It's just the performance, as we all know, will be better. And I have some concerns there that that we're addressing I hope to address through this compensation study, and then we'll be presenting that out to the SU board. The other thing that I've been working on, and with the help of the assistant superintendent and the director of curriculum instruction, the directive I want is in the approval of teacher professional development. There is what they're allotted under the teacher contract, but it really needs to be directed, if we're going to continue improvement in our schools, it needs to be directed towards the goals of the supervisory union and what we used to call the action plans of the individual schools. And we're developing a matrix or grid, rubric, whatever term you want to use, that will help, because the first signature on those professional development forms is by the principal. We want to make it as easy and as quick for the principals to approve professional development before it gets sent to the superintendent, that we can see that it aligns with what we're trying to accomplish here. And that doesn't mean that we say no to people who are in master's degree programs. That's a whole different thing if they're pursuing a master's or a different certification, but we're talking mainly about like what workshops we might be sending you to and what specific training that we might be paying to send you for. We need to be more direct in what we want to accomplish along with our goals on that. So that's one of the projects that I'm currently working on. And that's, I said I'd be brief. I'm looking at the time, so I'll reserve the rest of. The other thing that I am preparing to present to all the boards. Some of you went to the joint, the regional Vermont School Board Association meeting up in Manchester last month. The Secretary of Education has released her PowerPoint presentation, and there was also a presentation that evening, a joint video by the Vermont School Board Association and the Vermont Superintendents Association on the state of education in Vermont. And it is informative, but it's lengthy. So I'm in the process of giving a more concise, condensed version of that to present at the next round of board meetings. So it'll start in 2 weeks from tonight with Woodford and where else do I go there? Shaftesbury, no. BSD. BSD, thank you. So that'll be the first time that we'll do that, and because it currently, just the video by the joint superintendents and School Board Association is 18 minutes long, and it is very informative and filled with a lot of facts and graphs of the current state of education in Vermont. But for a board meeting, we're going to do a reduced version to the more pertinent slides. So that's the other project I'm currently working on. And that's it, unless you have any questions for me.
No, it would tie in with what Dave was saying earlier. Any questions? Do I have a motion to go to executive session? Second? All in favor?
Are we coming back here for action?
Yes, we have to come back here for action. Is it easier for us to report back?
How long do you think?
I don't know. Maybe we could get back to you,
Yeah,
Richard.
I'd say you may come back here for action. It's not.
Yeah. Here's the clerk. Good.